Alright, this is the second half of doing the chair model. First thing I want to do is, while I had this rendering, I looked at the model and I was unhappy with the back. I want it to actually come down just a little bit further here to create more of a swoop shape. Maybe not quite that extreme, so I'll bring this up. But once again, this is something you can play with and explore and try and find other solutions to. So don't be afraid of making changes or pushing things and pulling things and trying to get things to work in a way that you want them to. Alright, but now let's do the chair base. So now I'm going to move on to creating that bottom. Once again, I could do this as two pieces or one piece. I'm actually going to take the approach of doing it as one piece so that it allows me the opportunity to show you how I can effectively use hard and soft edges. It'll also give me the geometry I need to create this. Now, because I want simplified geometry, I don't want to add, just a ton of information. I'm going to start by doing a cylinder, but reducing it to 8 sides. And what that will allow me is, as I come down to this shape on the bottom, there'll be the first face on the inside, the face that gets extruded, a face on the inside, and you see alternating, that gets you 8 sides. And so that'll help me get some of the shaping that I want, but by keeping it simple. Now the chair is already too high, so I'm going to bring these objects down to about where they should be here. That's not very good either. So I'm actually going to bring this forward, make sure it's over that origin. And I'm going to build this cylindrical shape at the origin. Alright, so I will create a cylinder, and I will reduce this down. I'm also going to open up the attribute editor and make sure I change that subdivision to 8. Now this is a place where I can also talk about using the multi-cut tool to clean up the problem I have right here with these triangles. I don't want the triangles. The triangles are not helpful for me. I want to make sure that I keep everything in quads. So instead, if I delete all of those edges, I can use the multi-cut tool and I can cut, if I remember to turn symmetry off, so let me turn that off. I can cut here across the form. And I'll cut across one more time right there. And then I can go to the bottom of the object and do the same thing. And I'm being very careful about how I cut across. I want this edge loop to complete all the way through, just for ease of use later on in case there ever is a time where I need to add more information. It helps make this a little bit easier. Now I did both sides. I'm probably not going to keep the top side. Once it's going into the seat, I don't need it. It'll never be seen again. But I just want to do it to show you the principle of keeping those good edge loops. Because if I have it come down and actually cut across the other way, then the edge loops can get weird if I need to add any in. So I will scale this down once more and bring that up so that it can go into the base of the seat. Go into wireframe mode. And some seats will actually have other bases mounted on the bottom. This one is going straight up through the upholstery to whatever system's inside for rotation. But that's all covered up, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to jam it up and through. And I'm doing that right at the origin, so if there does need to be a change with the seat, I need to do that now. So I need to figure out the main point of balance. And I think I've actually got it pretty close. So I think I'll move that forward just slightly, but not too much. Just about right there. Okay, making sure that that's still going into the form, that there aren't any places where it's coming out. I will delete these 3 faces, and I will use the remainder to be able to build up the base. So I'll bring this down to here, and this is where I'll do the expansion from. I will extrude, bring that form out. I can extrude again to bring that down. And I don't want to go all the way to the ground, but I'll get pretty close. Because this will actually be raised up a little bit, and it will actually be the feet at the end that raise it up and support it. And then what I need to do is start adjusting how this is laid out. So currently this isn't going to work for me. I need the face to be directly front and back and side to side in order to get this to work. So I need to cause this to be rotated just a little bit. So if I grab it and rotate it, I can get it close and then come over here. Let me delete history really quick so I can get rid of those. But I come to the attribute editor and I can figure it out and try and do the math to guess how far it can go, or you can do the math and then just enter it. So if you figure a full rotation is 90 degrees, but that would still get me to here. Partial rotation is 45 degrees, but that gets me there. I need to find half of 45 degrees, so that's 22.5, and that gets it lined up exactly where I need it to be as far as that rotation. Okay, so with that in place, now I can actually make use of this. But what I'm going to do for this is I am going to come here and I am going to, looking at this, the chair right here, I can see that these line up almost to the front and the back of that pipe right there. So that's the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to grab this edge and this edge, which it did because I've got the symmetry to World X turned on again. And I will use snap to point, so holding down V and snap this forward to that edge. I can just do this same thing on the other side. Let me grab it, V, snap to point, and because symmetry's on, it just automatically does it. Snap to point, V, snap to point. And so this gets me the shaping that I need. So with this in place, I now need to worry about creating these legs. So I will grab each of these faces individually and I'm going to turn the symmetry off. With each of those faces selected, I will then use the extrude tool and I will use the tool that you see right here, the manipulator tool, which comes on once you turn on the extrude. And I will pull it out using that, because if I just use the regular direction pull tool, it's not going to do exactly what I want it to. In this case, I want everything to work uniformly, so now I'll scale it and scale that down. And you see there's a problem because it's going up on one side and down on the other. So this is something that I want to correct later. And actually I can do that right now. By having it pulled out to roughly where I need to be, I can actually come back, grab each of these edges, and what I will do is I will snap those, so snap to point, and bring those down here to the bottom. I can then grab these upper edges and bring those down. Now the reason I'm doing it this way and not just completing it and adding in an edge loop is because I want to be able to control a little bit of, let me pull this up again so you can see, a little bit of this shaping right here. So by having that there, I can then grab each of these faces again, and technically I could do it the other way too, where I could have pulled it all the way in one shot. But I am just doing it this way because I can right now. So bringing this out, then I'm going to scale that down. This is where I'm going to add a secondary edge loop. So technically, once again, I could have done it that other way, but I didn't. I wanted to scale that down to get a better feel for how much room I was going to use. There's that. And as you can tell, even as I'm recording, I'm making a lot of mistakes. I'm backtracking, I'm trying to figure out what it is I want to do, and that's a natural part of the process. That's fine. Actually no, now I just remembered why I was doing it that way. So let me step back, Control Z. As you can see, lots of mistakes, but that's okay. This is part of the process. I'm going to do an extrusion, and the reason yet again is so that I've got these across in exactly the way I want it. I will scale this one down. So scale this down flat. And then I will grab these bottom edges, raise them up. To where I want that pad to inset. Grab each of these faces again. Do an extrusion. Grab these top edges and bring them down. Now this is not the optimal way to do this, but based on the tools you've learned so far, this is one of the better methods. Later on you're going to be learning about appending and bridging gaps and stuff like that, and in those cases I would make one leg, make it exactly how I want, and then combine it and integrate it into part of a single larger form. But once again, this tutorial is this example is to kind of show you how you can do this stuff with just the tools you've learned so far to get you exploring and playing with some of the content. And so I'm grabbing these to make sure that I've got this lined up a little bit more evenly. There we go. All right. So with that, I'm going to create a final piece. And I'm going to get a little tricky with this one. So this is going to be the base foot for this. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, go to the attribute editor, and I'm going to do the edit, delete all by type history, modify, freeze transforms, and then I'm going to rotate this 45 degrees. Instead of moving this object, I'm going to keep it with its pivot at the origin, and I'm just going to grab the components on this and move those out in space. And I'm going to create these foot pads by lining them up with what's here. Once again, everything I'm doing with this, I'm doing just in component mode. So I'll grab this, bring it in just a little bit more. Grab this side. I do want this to extend out just a little bit. But I will do an extrusion underneath so it can be fairly tight at the moment. Grab these two. Scale those in so they're just barely on the outside. I will use snap to point by holding down V to get that to line up. Bring this up here to get that base of the pad. Once again, I want to look at the picture and kind of get a feel. So that's got that rounded form. And I thought it flared a little bit more, but I'm not seeing that correctly. So let me actually take care of that too. And if you notice also on the legs, there is a certain amount of tapering. So while it's in this mode, I can actually adjust that tapering just a little bit. So I will come here and using this tool, snap that to the center. I could actually move it out and do something different. So I'll do that really quick. So I will get this here, and I can actually remove that edge loop. Once again, making sure to remove the vertices along with it. And then I can use these to help me get that rounded form that I'm looking for. I'll also extend these two sides just a little bit further, so scaling those out so that it goes just past the foot. And actually, excuse me, I'm going to step back and undo that because of the other thing I'm going to be changing right now. So if I grab these, and right now that's not working the way I want it to, that's based on object. My scale setting needs to be changed from object to world, and you see how that moves it. In the world thing, I'm also going to turn snap step to relative so that I can make sure that this is even. And I'm going to do that by 20. Let's see if that works. So holding down shift. Oh, that's going into extrude. So let me go into scale. Let's try this again. Oh, that's to extrude. Okay, my bad. I wasn't thinking straight. The multi-cut tool, if you hold shift, that goes into snap step. With these tools, snap step is just done by default. Also, 20 is 20 units, so I need to actually reduce that down greatly. It's not 20%, so let me correct what I was doing. So let me try 0.02 and see what kind of snapping we get. And it's so minor, it's not helping. So let me try 0.1, see what that does. Okay, so that's more along the lines of what I was looking for. So I can snap this down. So I'm going 1, 2, 3. That feels good. I will then take these and reduce them just a little bit further. So 1, keep that going. And this one I won't take very far. I'm actually going to turn the snap step off and grabbing both sides, just barely scale it in. So if I look at it from top down, I can eyeball this and get it close. I could have also done it symmetrically on the other side, which I will do for the other one. That gets me the shaping roughly that I want. And this is where being able to use the other tools, being able to pen things and connect things in later, you'll see that that's much better for this type of process where I can make one leg start to finish, get the perfect taper, then add in edge loops, and then build the piece and attach it in. But once again, for the tools you're using now, this is an approach. So let me get this other side first, and then we'll do the front and back. So let me grab these edges, turn that snap step back onto relative. And already I've forgotten exactly how far I was planning on doing this. So what I can do is do it in this front view and watch for where it lines up with those interfaces. Oh. Okay. I'm just going back and forth to check. So I messed up somewhere in here, so let me bring that back in line with this. There we go. Now let me make a couple of little repairs. Okay, the problem is I was moving it in from where I had already moved the larger one, so I need to fix that once again. Grab all of these vertices and snap them in. So 1, 2, 3. Grab these end ones here. Bring those in. 1. And then this one I will bring in ever so slightly with the snap step turned off. Okay. And so now I need to replicate that on this. So front and back. Snap step turned on. 1, 2, 3. Could also just do it 0.3 to get that exact, but there's those. One. And grabbing just these inner vertices on both sides so I can do it all at once. Just bring it in, just turning snap step off once again. Bringing that in ever so slightly. All right. So with this, not perfect, but it's most of the way what we want. I also have this foot pad that I am then going to just drop those faces there on the bottom down to the grid. So holding down the X key, I will drop that down. And that creates the foot pad shape that I want. And I'm feeling like now that that's narrowed, this is going overkill a little bit large. So I'll grab this object, scale that in just slightly so that it has a better feel. And that works much better for me. I'm then going to come back to the attribute editor, take that back down to a 0. And the way this works is I can then set this to 45. I can Control D or edit duplicate. Add 90 to that, so 135. Oh, let me Control Z to undo that really quick first. Control D first to duplicate, and then that one, 135. And I just want to grab this really quick, make sure there wasn't another one hidden. All right. So with this, Control D, and I will simply go negative 135. This one, Control D, just change that to a negative 45. And now I've got those foot pieces in place. Now, there's a couple things not working for me, and I could have changed this on the first one before I duplicated it, but I didn't. So I will grab these individually right now. Oh. Shift select each of these edges. And what I'm doing is I am going to take those and go mesh display, soften edge, and that way those feet get that rounded form there. I want to keep it hard edged on top and bottom, so I've got that distinct section there, but that helps create that rounding at the front. Now I'll also come back to this base where right now it's got those hard edges and I don't really want those. So I'm going to grab these and go mesh display, soften edge. So now I get that more cylindrical form. I do want to keep the hard edge around here at the bottom though, so I can get that distinct shift from one piece to the next. I want to soften these because if you remember, these were rounded on the image. So mesh display, soften edge. I also want to make a couple of other little changes. You notice that there's some lines showing up here. I want these sections across here to be softened as the metal transitions, but I also want to make sure that these edges are softened so that I don't get the funny hard angles. So mesh display, soften edge. All right, so with that, we have the base piece done. We have the top two pieces done. And I can select all of these. And once I'm done with everything, just like the table, I can go, well, before I actually combine, I was going to combine them, but I will delete history first, delete all by type history, modify freeze transforms, check the outliner, make sure that I only have the requisite number that I need. So 1, 2, 3 for those pieces, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the feet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so everything looks good. So now I can go mesh combine. With the pivot right there, I'll hit the D key and hold down the X key for snap to grid, so I can snap that to the origin. hit the D key again. So I moved the pivot to the origin. I will come down, edit, delete all by type history, modify, freeze transforms just out of habit, change the name. This will be chair underscore one underscore mesh. And there we go. Everything's cleaned up, cleaned out. Let me go check the outliner first. And you see, after creating that, it left 3 empty nodes because I've deleted the history, so I know that none of that should be there. And so I'll just manually delete those. And now I'm left with this clean object. One other final check I want to do. I will go mesh cleanup. Make sure it's select matching polygons, faces with more than 4 sides, and hit apply. And you see nothing was selected. And so this is a clean object. So now I can go File, Save Scene As, and I could save it as another iteration, which sometimes I'll do at the end anyway. But then the final one I save, File, Save Scene As, I'll get rid of that extension, and so now it's just Chair 1. And that's it for an example of how to approach modeling a chair.